Welcome back to the Revenge Chronicles, the place where real stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and shocking revenge come to life. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you don't want to miss what happens next in today's story. Now, listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is something I never imagined could happen in my own family. I still remember the first time I walked into my husband's family home. I was clutching a small bouquet of flowers, my palms sweaty, my heart thumping so hard I thought everyone could hear it. His mother, Linda, opened the door with a smile so polished it almost gleamed. "Oh, you must be Emily," she said, her voice sweet but sharp enough to cut through glass. I smiled, trying my best to make a good first impression, but I didn't realize then that no matter how kind I was, how polite, or how helpful, I'd never be enough for them. They didn't want a daughter-in-law, they wanted a servant. And I became exactly that, until the day everything changed and I became their boss. But before I tell you how, tell me, what would you have done if the people who should have treated you like family started treating you like help? Would you have walked away, or stayed to prove them wrong? When I first met Jason, my husband, he was charming in that effortless way some men are. Confident, funny, a little rough around the edges but sweet when it mattered. We met at a marketing conference in Chicago. I was fresh out of college, working my first job at a small PR firm while he was in sales, already making a decent living. We clicked instantly. He wasn't like the guys I dated before. He listened, remembered small details, made me laugh when I took life too seriously. Within a year, we moved in together, and a year after that, we got married. It all felt like a fairy tale, until I realized his family wasn't the kind you read about in fairy tales. They were the kind you read about in Reddit horror stories. The first sign came right after our wedding. I'd worked hard planning everything, the decorations, the food, even the music, but his mom made sure to take the credit. At the reception, she kept telling guests, "I picked this theme myself. I just wanted everything perfect for my son's big day." I laughed it off, thinking she was just excited. But soon I started noticing the pattern. Everything good was for her son. Every problem, every minor issue somehow became my fault. Jason didn't see it at first. He adored his mother, always called her the most selfless woman alive. I wanted to believe that too, until we moved closer to his family and I started seeing the real Linda. She'd show up unannounced, criticizing my cooking, rearranging my kitchen, and giving me those fake sweet smiles while saying things like, "Oh, honey, I see you tried to make lasagna. It's cute how you try." Jason would laugh it off, saying, "That's just mom being mom." I didn't want to cause drama, so I let it slide. But every visit, it got worse. Then came the family dinners, those were the worst. His dad, Robert, barely spoke to me except to ask if I could grab another beer or clean the table. His sister, Megan, rolled her eyes at everything I said, whispering to her mom when she thought I wasn't looking. I was treated like a guest who had overstayed her welcome, except I was the one doing all the work. The breaking point came one Thanksgiving when Linda forgot to mention that she'd invited 30 people to her house, and then called me that morning saying she wasn't feeling well and asked if I could help out. I ended up cooking for everyone, cleaning after everyone, smiling through gritted teeth while they complimented Linda for hosting such a wonderful dinner. She stood there, beaming like she'd just won an award. Jason, of course, thought I didn't mind. "You're so good at this stuff," he said later, kissing my cheek. I wanted to scream. Over time, their constant criticism chipped away at me. I started doubting myself, my looks, my work, my worth. I'd come home from my job at the PR firm exhausted, only to get calls from Linda asking me to come over and help her redecorate the guest room or plan a family event. It wasn't even subtle anymore. I was her maid, her assistant, her backup daughter when Megan didn't feel like doing something. And if I said no, she'd guilt-trip me. "Family helps family, Emily," she'd say. "I guess that's not how you were raised." But I stayed quiet. For a long time. 'Cause I loved Jason and I believed that someday his family would see how much I cared. But that day never came. Instead, Jason started taking their side. He began echoing their words. "You should be more grateful. Mom's just trying to help. You're overreacting." Our marriage slowly became another place I didn't feel seen. I felt small. Invisible. Until one night, everything changed. It was a Saturday. I'd just come home from a long week at work, and Linda had invited herself over again. She was sitting in our living room when I walked in, sipping tea from my favorite mug. "Oh, good, you're back," she said. "I was telling Jason how maybe you should quit your job. It's stressing you out. You can help me manage the family gatherings and keep the house running smoothly. You're so good at that stuff." I laughed, thinking she was joking. But Jason nodded. "It might be good for you," he said softly. "Mom's right, you've been overwhelmed lately." I stared at him, speechless. "So your solution is, I quit my career and become your mom's unpaid assistant?" He didn't respond. That silence told me everything I needed to know. That night, after they went to bed, I sat in the dark living room and cried. I felt humiliated, trapped, and utterly alone. But in that moment of despair, something inside me shifted. I decided I was done trying to be accepted. I wasn't going to shrink myself anymore just to fit into their tiny definition of a good wife. If they saw me as a maid, I'd make sure they'd one day have to call me boss. So I threw myself into my work, not just to escape, but to prove to myself that I could stand on my own. I started freelancing on the side, helping small businesses with branding and social media. Nights, weekends, holidays, I worked. Slowly, my little side hustle turned into a real business. Clients came in through word of mouth, and within a year, I quit my job and started my own digital marketing agency. Jason didn't understand why I was so driven. "You're working too much," he'd complain. "You don't spend time with my family anymore." I just smiled. "I'm building something, Jason. You'll see." A few years later, my agency took off. We landed a huge deal with a lifestyle company that was expanding nationwide. They needed a new marketing head to lead their rebranding, and guess who they hired? Me. The company was owned by a family friend of Linda's, and suddenly, her world and mine overlapped again in the most unexpected way. I found out later that Linda's charity group was trying to partner with that same company for an upcoming event. And since I was now heading their branding division, every partnership went through me. So that's the situation I was in. The woman who once called me helpful in the most condescending way now needed my approval for her event. Before I tell you what happened next, pause for a second. What would you do if the people who once treated you like dirt suddenly had to smile and ask for your help? Would you take revenge or rise above it? Comment below. I really want to hear what you'd have done. When Linda reached out, she didn't even realize I was the one in charge. She emailed the general company address, signing off with, "I'm sure whoever's managing partnerships will be thrilled to work with our esteemed family foundation." When my assistant forwarded the email to me, I just stared at it for a full minute and laughed. "Oh, this is going to be interesting," I muttered. I didn't reply immediately. A week later, she called me directly, probably because someone told her the partnership was delayed. The moment she heard my voice, she froze. "Emily?" "Oh, I didn't realize you were working there," she said awkwardly. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. "Actually," I replied, "I'm leading the rebranding campaign. So any partnership will need my final approval." Silence. Then the fakest laugh I'd ever heard. "Oh, well, isn't that wonderful? You've done so well for yourself, dear." I smiled. "Thanks, Linda. I'll review your proposal and get back to you." I knew exactly what I was going to do. I didn't want to be petty, but I also wasn't going to let her walk over me again. I went through her charity proposal, and while it looked decent, it didn't align with our brand goals. So I sent a polite decline, explaining that we were partnering with other organizations that better matched our direction. The next week, she called again, this time with her voice trembling slightly. "Emily, maybe we can meet and discuss this? Over lunch, perhaps?" I met her for coffee. When I walked into that cafe, she was already there, nervously stirring her drink. She looked older, smaller somehow. "You look successful," she said, her tone carefully balanced between admiration and envy. "Thank you," I said, sitting down. "I've worked really hard." She smiled weakly. "I guess you always had that in you." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then she said, "You know, Jason mentioned you've been so busy lately." Maybe this will be good for both our families, reconnecting through work. I nodded slowly. Funny, I said. I used to beg to be part of your family. Now, I guess I decide who gets in. Her face fell. She opened her mouth, then closed it. There was nothing she could say. That night, Jason confronted me. Mom's upset, he said. She feels like you're holding a grudge. I looked at him, calm and collected. Jason, your family treated me like I was less than them for years. I worked my way up while they looked down on me. If your mom feels uncomfortable now, maybe she should think about how she made me feel back then. He didn't respond. That silence, again. It used to hurt me, but now it just confirmed what I already knew. I'd outgrown him too. Eventually, Jason and I divorced. It wasn't messy, just empty. I think we both knew it had been over long before the papers were signed. He moved back in with his parents for a while, and I kept growing my business. A few months later, I heard that Linda's charity had lost funding after our company turned them down. She reached out again, this time genuinely, asking if I'd consider helping her restructure their marketing. I did, on one condition: she'd have to work under my agency as a client. She agreed. So there I was, sitting across the conference table from the same woman who once told me I wasn't raised right, now nodding at my ideas, taking notes, and thanking me for my time. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about respect. I didn't gloat, I didn't rub it in. But I made sure she knew exactly who I had become. In the end, it wasn't just about becoming their boss. It was about reclaiming my worth. The woman they once called helpful had become the one signing their checks. I didn't need their approval anymore, I'd earned my own. So if you've ever been treated like you're not good enough, remember this: you don't have to fight to be seen. Just rise so high they can't ignore you anymore. If you were on my side, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories like this and tell me in the comments, would you have forgiven them or done exactly what I did? I'll see you all in the next story.